Volume 1, Book 8, number 357. Narrated by Said bin al-Harith. I asked Jabir bin Abdullah about praying in a single garment. He said, I traveled with the Prophet during some of his journeys, and I came to him at night for some purpose and I found him praying. At that time, I was wearing a single garment with which I covered my shoulders and prayed by his side. When he finished the prayer, he asked, O Jabir, what has brought you here? I told him what I wanted. When I finished, he asked, O Jabir, what is this garment which I have seen and with which you covered your shoulders? I replied, it is a tight garment. He said, if the garment is large enough, wrap it round the body, covering the shoulders, and if it is tight, too short, then use it as an izar, tie it around your waist only. Volume 1, Book 8, number 358. Narrated by Sahl. The men used to pray with the Prophet with their izars tied around their necks as boys used to do. Therefore the Prophet told the women not to raise their heads till the men sat down straight, while praying. Volume 1, Book 8, number 359. Narrated by Mughira bin Shu'bah. Once I was traveling with the Prophet and he said, O Mughira, take this container of water. I took it and Allah's apostle went far away till he disappeared. He answered the call of nature and was wearing a Syrian cloak. He tried to take out his hands from its sleeve, but it was very tight, so he took out his hands from under it. I poured water and he performed ablution like that for prayers and passed his wet hands over his cuff, leather socks, and then prayed. Volume 1, Book 8, number 360. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. While Allah's apostle was carrying stones, along with the people of Mecca for the building of the Kaaba wearing an izar, waist sheet cover, his uncle Al-Abbas said to him, O my nephew, it would be better if you take off your izar and put it over your shoulders underneath the stones. So he took off his izar and put it over his shoulders, but he fell unconscious and since then he had never been seen naked. Volume 1, Book 8, number 361. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. A man stood up and asked the Prophet about praying in a single garment. The Prophet said, Has every one of you two garments? A man put a similar question to Umar, on which he replied, When Allah makes you wealthier, then you should clothe yourself properly during prayers. Otherwise one can pray with an izar and a rida, a sheet covering the upper part of the body. Izar and a shirt, izar and a kaba, trousers and a rida, trousers and a shirt or trousers and a kaba, tuban and a kaba, or tuban and a shirt. The narrator added, I think that he also said a tuban and a rida. Volume 1, Book 8, number 362. Narrated by Ibn Umar. A person asked Allah's apostle, what should a muhrim wear? He replied, he should not wear shirts, trousers, a burnous, a hooded cloak, or clothes which are stained with saffron or wars, a kind of perfume. Whoever does not find a sandal to wear can wear cuffs, but these should be cut short so as not to cover the ankles. Volume 1, Book 8, number 363. Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's apostle forbade ishtimal as sama, wrapping one's body with a garment so that one cannot raise its end or take one's hand out of it. He also forbade al-atiba, sitting on buttocks with knees close to abdomen and feet apart with the hands circling the knees, while wrapping oneself with a single garment, without having a part of it over the private parts. Volume 1, Book 8, number 364. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Prophet forbade two kinds of sales, i.e. al-limis and a niba. The former is a kind of sale in which the deal is completed if the buyer touches a thing without seeing or checking it properly, and the latter is a kind of a sale in which the deal is completed when the seller throws a thing towards the buyer giving him no opportunity to see, touch or check it. And the Prophet forbade also Ishtamal as-Sama, and al-Atiba, in a single garment. Volume 1, Book 8, number 365. Narrated by Abu Hurairah, on the day of Nahr, 10th of Dhul Hijjah, in the year prior to the last Hajj of the Prophet, when Abu Bakr was the leader of the pilgrims in that Hajj, Abu Bakr sent me along with other announcers to Mina to make a public announcement. No pagan is allowed to perform Hajj after this year, and no naked person is allowed to perform the tawaf around the Kaaba. Then Allah's apostle sent all to read out the Surah Bara at Tawbah to the people. So he made the announcement along with us on the day of Nahr in Mina. No pagan is allowed to perform Hajj after this year, and no naked person is allowed to perform the tawaf around the Kaaba. Volume 1, Book 8, number 366. Narrated by Muhammad bin al-Munkadir, I went to Jabir bin Abdullah, and he was praying wrapped in a garment, and his reader was lying beside him. When he finished the prayers, I said, "O Abdullah, you pray in a single garment, while your reader is lying beside you?" He replied, "Yes, I did it intentionally so that the ignorant ones like you might see me. I saw the Prophet praying like this." Volume 1, Book 8, number 367. Narrated by Abdul Aziz, Anas said, when Allah's apostle invaded Kaaba, we offered the Fajr prayer there yearly in the morning, when it was still dark. The Prophet rode and Abu Talha rode too, and I was riding behind Abu Talha. The Prophet passed through the lane of Kaaba quickly, and my knee was touching the thigh of the Prophet. He uncovered his thigh, and I saw the whiteness of the thigh of the Prophet. When he entered the town, he said, "Allahu Akbar. Kaaba is ruined." Whenever we approach near hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the morning of those who have been warned. He repeated this thrice. The people came out for their jobs, and some of them said, "Muhammad has come." Some of our companions added, "with his army." We conquered Kaaba, took the captives, and the booty was collected. Dihya came and said, "O Allah's Prophet, give me a slave girl from the captives." The Prophet said, "Go and take any slave girl." He took Safiya bint Huyai. A man came to the Prophet and said, "O Allah's apostles, you gave Safiya bint Huyai to Dihya, and she is the chief mistress of the tribes of Quraiza and An-Nadir, and she befits none but you." So the Prophet said, "Bring him along with her." So Dihya came with her, and when the Prophet saw her, he said to Dihya, "Take any slave girl other than her from the captives." Anas added, "The Prophet then manumitted her and married her." Thabit asked Anas, "O Abu Hamza, what did the Prophet pay her as mahr?" He said, "Herself was her mahr, for he manumitted her and then married her." Anas added, "While on the way, Sulaim dressed her for marriage ceremony, and at night she sent her as a bride to the Prophet. So the Prophet was a bridegroom, and he said, 'Whoever has anything, food, should bring it.' He spread out a leather sheet for the food, and some brought dates and others cooking butter. I think he, Anas, mentioned as tq. So they prepared a dish of hais, a kind of meal. And that was walima, the marriage banquet, of Allah's apostle.